जय राधा जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय जना यशोधानंदना व्रज जनरंजना यशोधानंदना व्रज जनरंजना आनंदना व्रज जनरंजना यशोधानंद यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा हरे कृष्ण। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवतीर्नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 1, text 23 and 24. So 23 there is no purport, so we'll discuss on 24. So text 23, Evam nivasatastasya लालयान्यसत्तत्सुतान् कालो अत्यागन महान राजन आस्तास्त्यायुषु समाहा. My dear king, while he thus spent his time in abominable sinful activities to maintain his family of many sons, 88 years of his life passed by. Text 24. Tasya pravayasah putram dashatesham tuyo avamaham बालो नारायणो नाम्नाम पितरोश्च दयितो वृषम् तस्य प्रवयसः पुत्राम् दश तेषां तु यो वमः बालो नारायणो नाम्नाम् पितरोश्च दयितो वृषम् तस्य प्रवयसः पुत्राम् दश तेषां तु यो वमः बालो नारायणो नाम्नाम् पितरोश्च दयितो वृषम्. तस्य प्रवयसः पुत्राम् दश तेषां तु यो वमः बालो नारायणो नाम्नाम् पित्रोश्च दयितो वृषम्. हरे कृष्ण. तस्य, of him, Ajamila, pravayasah, who was very old, putraha, sons, dasha, 10, tesham, of all of them, tu, but, yaha, the one who, avamaha, the youngest, balaha, child, narayanaha, narayana, namna, by name, pitroho, of the father and mother, cha, and dayitaha, very dear, brisham, very. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That old man Ajamila had 10 sons, of whom the youngest was the baby named Narayana. Since Narayana was the youngest of all the sons, he was naturally very dear to both his father and his mother. Purport. The word pravayasaha indicates Ajamila's sinfulness because although he was 88 years old, he had a very young child. According to Vedic culture, one should leave home, and as soon as he reached 50 years of age, one should not live at home and go on producing children. Sex life is allowed for 25 years between the ages of 25 and 45, or at most 50. After that, one should give up the habit of sex life and leave home as a vanaprastha and then properly take sannyas. Ajamila, however, because of his association with a prostitute, lost all Brahminical culture and became most sinful, even in his so-called household life. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupak Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvise Namaham He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Maditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaham Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Tasya pravayasah putra dashatesham tu yo vamaha balo narayano namna pitaroscha dayito brisham. That old man Ajamila had 10 sons, of whom the youngest was the baby named Narayana. Since Narayana was the youngest of all the sons, he was naturally very dear to both his father and his mother. Hare Krishna. So before I start speaking on this, seek blessings of all the assembled devotees so that I can speak for the glorification of Krishna and for my own purification. Thank you. So this verse today, I would like to speak on the main subject of this verse. You see in the verse, Prabhupada talks about, so the first time the word Narayana also comes here, right? The name of the child. So we'll have 3 main points to discuss. First we'll discuss on sense controlled and higher taste. Because in the previous verse also Prabhupada says how it is so important for the devotees of Krishna conscious movement to restrain oneself. That is there in the previous purport. So we'll see sense control and higher taste from the Bhagavad Gita, few verses. And then secondly, we'll talk about old age. Old age, how it can be miserable for oneself or others, or how it can be valuable also, because that is also context in this verse. And third, we will talk about the meaning of the word Narayana and also the importance of naming children with holy names of the Lord, okay, because that is also in that context. And at the end, if time permits, we will also see one pastime, similar pastime from one of the Puranas, which is quoted by one of the Alvars in his songs. So, time permits, we will see that also. Okay. So, if you see this whole pastime, Ajamila pastime, so we know this famous shloka in Ishopanishad, mantra 11, right? Vidyamscha avidyamscha yastad vedo ubayam saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amritam ashnute. Right? We all have heard this verse. So, there are various meanings. One of the meanings given is what? Avidyaya means the knowledge of ignorance, knowledge about material world. That means knowledge about the material world, which is the place of ignorance. Right? That is one meaning. So, and then Vidyaya means knowledge of the spiritual world. So, that's how Prabhupada also explains. So, in this pastime, what we see is both the aspects are there. That means we see the dangers of the material world. From the Ajamila story, we see how dangerous it is. Right? Such a person who was so exalted in a position of a Brahmana, pure Brahmana, he fell to such an abominable condition. So we say about that also. And then we also see the power of devotion. Just such a person, how he was elevated to the highest, went back home, back to Godhead. So that also we see. So with this, in this section, we see both this aspect. Avidyaya mrityum tiritva. That means by knowing, by knowledge of this place of ignorance, by knowledge of this material world, it is said one goes beyond the mortality. That means basically one gets detached, one gets detachment and go beyond that. Correct? So that is one aspect. And the second is Vidyaya Amritam Ashnute. By spiritual knowledge of the spiritual world, we go back home, back to God. So both aspects are there in this pastime. So there is a speciality. That means the lowest and the dangers of the material world and the highest aspects also. Both are there in this pastime. So in this context, so we will discuss a very beautiful section from Bhagavad Gita. This is from Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. Okay. So I will speak something from the commentary of Srimad Ramanujacharya, Gita Bhashyam. So where he makes a nice explanation on this. So we all know this in the last section of the chapter 2, this Sthita Prajna is discussed, correct? So Sthita Prajna is basically, Krishna explains a Jnana Yogi. Who's a Jnana Yogi? And because Arjuna raises this question, right? Sthita Prajna se ka bhasha and all this. So Krishna explains in 4 verses what is the state of a Jnana Yogi. You know, what is this, what are the different stages he explains. And then in text 59 and 60, that means Vishaya Vinivartante, and then the next verse, Krishna talks about the difficulty and the rarity and the very difficulty of a Jnana Yogi, the path of Jnana Yoga, how difficult it is. Basically, Jnana Yoga is basically controlling one's senses and focusing on the Atma. In this context, in this particular context, it is more focusing on the Atma, right? Atma Gyan, that is our main context. So, Krishna tells in 59 and 60 the difficulty and rarity of this path of Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yogi's path, how difficult it is. So, text 59, what he says, Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehinaha Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishtva Nivartate. So, basically what he says here is, Param Drishtva here, how Ramanujacharya explains this, in this context, what is the Param Drishtva, or the goal in this section is Atma Sakshatkar, self-realization. That is the goal in this particular section, because that's what Krishna is talking about. So, what he says is, Niraharasya Dehinaha, that means that a person who is, the previous verse was what? Yada Samharate Chayam, that means one who withdraws his senses. So, what Krishna says, a person who has attempted to withdraw his senses, experiencing the sense object. Correct? That is the previous verse. So, Vishaya Vinivartante. So, such a person, what happens? The sense objects, he is turning away from sense objects for enjoyment. Okay? That is one thing. So, what happens? Krishna says, such a person, except for his desire, except for his raga or attachment, right? Rasavarjam. Rasavarjam means what? Except for the desire or the raga or attachment to that, externally he is stopped enjoying the sense objects. But the attachment still remains. Correct? That's the main point. Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehinaha Rasavarjam, and then Rasopyasya. That desire will cease to exist when Param Drishtva Nivartate. So basically in this what he is telling is, if one gets this Atma Sakshatkar, then he will be able to control his senses fully, like that he says. Correct? That means, this verse says, if you get Atma Sakshatkar and the taste, and then you will be able to fully control your senses. So that is what Krishna says in this 59. Correct? So basically here Atma Sakshatkar means what? It is not just the understanding. It is actually, like Sakshatkar means Sakshat, actually how we are taking darshan of Srila Prabhupada, the deities, like that, we are able to see we are not the body, we are the Atma. That is the level Krishna is talking about. Right? So what he is saying here, if the attachment will remain unless you have full Atma Sakshatkar. When you get the taste from this Atma Sakshatkar, till that time the attachment will remain, he says. Correct? We know this story also, no? Of Dhanurdas, right? We all know the pastime of Ramanujacharya. So he was so attached to his wife. He was taking umbrella, and his wife was coming and he was taking umbrella, and because he was so attracted to the eyes of his wife. So when he was asked by Ramanujacharya, he said, no, my wife's eyes are so beautiful, I don't want it to be harmed by sunshine or anything, that's why I am keeping this. So Ramanujacharya was so shocked, what determination, how he has got such an attachment. He asked him, so if I show you something better, more beautiful than this, what will you do? He said, no, then I will dedicate my entire life for that. So then Ramanujacharya takes him inside to Srirangam temple, and he also prays to the Lord. Lord, Ranganath, please reveal your beauty to him. And then Lord reveals his eyes, and it is said, from that time, you see Dhanurdas and his wife becomes a dedicated servant of Ramanujacharya. Anyway, the point what I was trying to say is, so Ramanujacharya was able to actually give that Drishtva, directly his vision. Correct? But that may not be possible for everyone like that, correct? So, yeah, the point here is, what Krishna says, see, he is talking about Jnana Yoga. To achieve Jnana Yoga, you have to control the senses. But for that, he is saying, to control the senses, it is fully possible only when you have Param Drishtva, that Atma Sakshatkar. Okay? And the next verse, what he says, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramatini haranti prashabam manaha. That means, so Kaunteya, Vipaschitta Purushasya, that means a person who is Vipaschit, very, very able to discriminate between body and soul, who is in the path of Atma Sakshatkar, Jnana Yogi. Yatatohi, that means even if a person is very struggling hard for attaining self-realization, Pramati Indriyani, the extremely powerful senses can take away such a person also such person's mind towards the sense object, he says. Correct? That means in this verse 60, what he is telling? Verse 59 he is telling, if Atma Sakshatkar is attained, then only one can fully conquer the senses. Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki, Shri Gauranitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So 59 he says, only if you get Atma Sakshatkar is attained, then only one can fully conquer the senses. Okay? That is 59. In the verse 60, what he is telling? If Indriyas are not controlled, it will take away, and Atma Sakshatkar is not possible. Right? So this is something like what is called as Anyonya Asharaya Dosha. That means mutual dependency. See, in text 59, what he is telling is, only if you attain Atma Sakshatkar, you can control the senses. And text 60, what he is telling is, even if the Atma one is in the path of Atma Sakshatkar, the mind will drag away and it can degrade one's senses. That's what he is telling, correct? So this is like what do you call it as like mutual dependency. You have to, for controlling the controlling the senses, Atma Sakshatkar only if you have, then only you will be fully controlled. And the second point what he is telling is, for actually Atma Sakshatkar, you have to control the senses, and that is so difficult, correct? So then how do we solve this problem, correct? No? It's like, for Atma Sakshatkar, you need to control the senses, and for controlling senses also, Atma Sakshatkar only, it is fully possible, like that. So Krishna himself resolves this in the next verse, which is a very famous verse, very important verse also. So this text 61, which also Sripad or Radhanath Swami Maharaj also quotes this very often, one of his favorite verses. What he says, what is 61? Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. So what Krishna says here, basically there are two dependencies. In text 59, what is the dependency? Controlling the senses is fully possible only if you have Atma Sakshatkar, Param Drishtva. Correct? And text 60, what he says? Text 60 is that Atma Sakshatkar is possible only if you fully control the senses, which is so difficult, he says. Right? So what Krishna says is, he accepts this text 60. Yes. That means Atma Sakshatkar is possible only by controlling the senses. No doubt about it. But the text 59, what Krishna changes it. What he is saying? Tani sarvani samyamya. That means all your senses, yukta asita matparaha. You withdraw your senses and employ it on me, Krishna says. Correct? Here, it is explained that samyamya doesn't mean controlling or just withdrawing alone. It basically means what we use the word dovetailing, right? That means utilizing all our senses and employing in Krishna's form, name, form, qualities and activities. Right? So that is how Krishna says that only by mercy it is possible. Okay? That's what is the essence of this. So vashe yasya indriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. So vasha by my blessings and mercy, then he is possible to the Jnana Yogi is also possible to control the senses. Okay? So even in the path of Bhakti Yoga also, we also need to control the senses and engage, right? So this is the secret which Krishna gives very beautifully, right? So without Krishna, engaging the senses towards Krishna, it is not possible to control the senses. That's the main point here. That means for a Jnana Yogi, the principle of controlling the senses and then meditating on the Atma and attaining Atma Sakshatkar, for that Jnana Yogi also, without Krishna's mercy, it is not possible. Right? We hear this particular concept, right? That means for other paths also, for those people to attain the perfection, without bhakti, it is not possible. Correct? We hear this the commentary of the Acharyas. So this is one thing what we see beautifully, that Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasya indriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. Then only it is possible. So further Krishna goes to say that if one does not follow this principle of Tani sarvani samyamya, then what happens? Then that dhyayato vishayan pamsaha sangasteshu pajayati, that he says, and then if one follows, then what happens? Ragadvesha vimuktaestu vishayan indriyescharan, and then the prasade sarva dukhanam, all those things he says. So that's how the flow goes, just like that. And then if you don't think of me, if you don't follow this text 61, Tani sarvani samyamya, then nasti buddhi rayuktasya, all those aspects Krishna says. Asantasya kuta soham. So that's how Ramanujacharya explains this beautifully. So the point is, without, see, we see in this story of Ajamila also, without him coming in contact with the holy name of the Lord, without that he was not able to attain perfection, right? Of course, this is extreme case of person who is involved in sinful activity, but even for a Jnana Yogi, for him also, without Krishna's mercy, it is not possible to control the senses. So this is one aspect what we are seeing. Next, we will discuss little about old age. So as I said, old age could be very miserable or it could be very valuable, both for oneself and to others also. Right? That's all. So, and Prabhupada here talks about also, like after 50 years, one should take Vanaprastha and dedicate fully oneself. So basically Vanaprastha is there to regulate and purify our material desires. In fact, the whole Varnashrama system is for that only, correct? To engage your senses properly, purify it, and also gradually elevate oneself to Krishna consciousness. So we'll first see a negative example. So any discussion about old age will not be complete without Dhritarashtra. Okay, so yes, sir. So we'll discuss about Dhritarashtra. So as we see, which comes in the first canto, 13th chapter. So Vidura, after he comes from his Tirtha Yatra, he was very shocked that Dhritarashtra is still sitting peacefully. After all his children are dying, he is sitting peacefully with his Yudhishthira's own and maintaining very nicely, and Yudhishthira is doing all seva and everything, accepting his service. So he was very shocked. Right? Then we have the series of verses where he says, right, Anda Puraiva, like your eyes are you're blind, and then your ears are. So he says, Parageham Upasate. With such a status, still you are sitting in others' home. Like that he says. So one may say, what is this? He is sitting in his own brother's son only, right? Is as good as his own son. He is sitting there home only, right? So there it is explained that even after 60, 70, in old age, sitting in one's home also is like Parageha only. That means not to take Krishna consciousness very seriously. It is like sitting in, that is how it is explained. Parageham upasate. And then finally he gives this very powerful, shocking verse. What he says? Aho mahiyasi jantor jivitasha yata bhavan bhimapa varjita pindam adante griha palavat. Okay, puts like a bomb. What he says? Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and eating remnants of the food given by Bhima. So why he says Bhimapa varjita pindam? Yeah, because he is the one who killed all the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, and mainly Prabhupada says in the purport, mainly his two dear sons, Duryodhana and Dushasana, was killed by Bhima, and his Bhima's remnants were eating, like that he says. So after that, so of course this is all instruction for us, for the Dhritarashtra within our heart. Right? So then he leaves this and then goes to the forest without even telling Yudhishthira Maharaj. So that's how it is. So by the mercy of Vidura, Dhritarashtra could get deliverance. That is what we see. So this is a danger of being too attached in our whole life. What happens is the old age becomes very miserable. Correct? We have so much of desires, but body you cannot do anything. So miserable. So that's why we see many people who are old but who don't have any dharmic principles or Krishna consciousness. What happens? They have a lot of desires. They keep telling about our past, what they did, how they enjoyed, or they also indulge in watching TV and other things. Correct? They think that as if so quite miserable it is, right? Miserable for oneself also and for others also, because for others they are not interested. A very boring person is like they want to just avoid and go away, right? That's how the old age is miserable. So we also see a positive example of Uddhava. I'm just taking one example. There are a lot in Uddhava's section. Prabhupada gives very nicely in a purport. We all know this in the third canto. Vidura comes to meet Uddhava, right? So that time it is said, the verse translation I will read. Uddhava thus served the Lord continually from childhood, and his old age that attitude of service never slackened. As soon as he was asked about the message of Lord, he at once remembered all about him. Right? That means when Vidura approached Uddhava was old, but when he was asking, immediately he was so enthusiastic. His attitude of service never slackened. He didn't say, no, I am very old, I am feeling very, you go and ask someone else. No, he was. So Prabhupada says, so transcendental service to the Lord is not mundane. The service attitude of a devotee gradually increases and never becomes slackened. So generally in old age, a person is allowed retirement from mundane service, but that is not there for transcendental service. So Prabhupada says this also. So service on bodily platform dwindles as the body grows older, but the spirit is never old, and therefore the spiritual plane, the service is never tiresome. So here we see that Uddhava, even though he became old, his spirit didn't become old. Correct? This Krishna consciousness never became old. In fact, it becomes more and more ripened. Correct? That's how it does. A person becomes old if his Krishna consciousness is much more valuable, right? Valuable to everyone, for himself and others also. So we see this in the Srila Prabhupada. See, now we had Prabhupada taking sannyas, and this I think 17th is Prabhupada landing in America also. So we see the great example of Srila Prabhupada, how at the age of 70 to 80, 82, Prabhupada accomplished such a massive, amazing thing, right? So it's very, very amazing and fascinating how Prabhupada, one person, how Prabhupada actually literally transported the whole Vedic culture, Krishna consciousness into there and implanted everything, taught them everything from the basics, correct? And at that old age, all young people, they were all so much attracted to Srila Prabhupada, right? All over there, somewhere in late teens and 20s, maximum oldest person or disciple was, maybe 30 years old or something, right? But they were all so much attracted and fascinated to Prabhupada, correct? Wherever Prabhupada they were going just, that's how it was. So this is a status of a person who is a devotee. The person, as he grows older, he becomes more and more valuable and, right? Very simple. Even a person is invalid. For example, many years back, His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj, who went back home, back to Godhead. So he had come to Chennai once. So he was in his late 80s or 90s, I think. So actually, literally, devotees had to bring him and lift him and bring like that. He had come to first floor somewhere. So literally, in the staircase, they were lifting him and bringing him there. And he was like this. And when he was sitting in the chair, and he started this. He sang Jai Radha Madhav, and after that, quite amazing. The whole class is so relishing with such a powerful voice. He was speaking about the whole class was about Jai Radha Madhav. He was just relishing each and every word and explaining the whole class. Right? Similarly, very simple. After that, some other hall program he was just taken and put there, and only he sat, and very amazing it was. So that's a great value. That means even body is so invalid, right? One is not able to do like that. We see, right? So many great personalities, Prabhupada disciples. We see Jayapatak Swami Maharaj, Radha Govind Maharaj. So externally they may look very invalid and very old, but when they open up and their realization and this one, so valuable it is, correct? So this is how we see a person who is Krishna conscious can become so valuable as one becomes older. So within our own community, we have a great example of His Grace Jaydev Prabhu, whom we had his 75th appearance was celebrated recently. So whenever I think of this word Pranayarthair Diya Vacha, so he is the person come to our mind. So within our midst of our own community, you see in terms of prana, how we render services everywhere. In any festival, any service you will see, he will be there. Right? Prasadam serving or chapel stand, everything. What an amazing quality, right? So Pranayar Arthair, Artha also, right? When we hear the score of the fundraising and all, almost near to 1 crore, he and his whole group, almost like 1/5 of the entire fundraising was done by him. Right? What an amazing thing. And similarly, Pranayar Arthair Diya Vacha, right? By his intelligence, by his classes and his study, how diligent he is, daily studying Prabhupada. Once he was telling, daily how he studies Bhagavatam, Prabhupada books, and giving so many classes, and then counseling and encouraging so many devotees, hundreds of devotees across. So what a great example within our own community. I'm just giving Jaydev Prabhu. There are many other devotees also like that. Correct? That means as a person grows older and older, becomes so valuable. You have to just go near him and just talk or just observe the activities. You become so much inspired. Correct? So this is what we see. The old age, how it can be miserable if we are not Krishna conscious, miserable for ourselves and to others also. Nobody is interested to talk to old people, like Prabhupada says. At the same time, when we see when a person is Krishna conscious, the older he becomes more valuable. Right? Long back, I heard one small pastime. Once, there was one newcomer, one person who came to temple, Srila Prabhupada's time. So he saw Srila Prabhupada, he was very old. So he thought he's an old man, we have to ask something, So he went to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, how are you? Like that he asked. He asked, no, he is an old person, you have to ask. So Prabhupada turned to the deities and he said, what could be, what is the problem for you? I'm doing very nice. What is the deficiency when we have Radha and Krishna? Like that Prabhupada showed the Ota, and then Prabhupada blessed him. So just this was enough for him. He became a devotee and became an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Correct? That means externally a person may think he is an old person, but the value and the power and mercy is quite enormous, which can't be imagined. Okay. So this is how when we train our, by proper understanding and proper following the principles, we become very valuable as we grow older. And then next we would briefly discuss on, as I said, this is the first time the word Narayana comes also, right? And also his child is given the name Narayana, right? Which Prabhupada will be explaining in further things also. So, we'll see briefly what is the meaning of the word Narayana and also the importance of naming children in with the Lord's holy name. So, this is something we'll discuss. Okay. So, this word Narayana has, could be various meanings may be there, but two beautiful meanings which I found, want to share. So, one meaning is Naraha Ayanam Yasya Saha. Okay. Maybe some Sanskrit scholars can explain much better. What this means is, he is the indweller in all the living entities. Indweller. That means, we say, na, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshu Arjuna Tishtati, right? Krishna is there in everyone's heart. So, that means within inside, the word Narayana, the name Narayana indicates two main meanings, two main sambandham or the relationship between between Krishna and ourselves and also the material world also. So the first is what is the Sharira Atma Sambandham. Like Prabhupada also mentions in some purports, just like how the for the body, Atma is there to drive the body. Similarly, for the entire cosmic manifestation, Krishna is the driving force, correct? And this is the basis of Ramanujacharya's philosophy also, right? That, what is called a Sharira Shariri Sambandham, body and. So, what this meaning means is Naraha Ayanam Yasya Saha. That means indweller in all the living entities. That means Krishna is there as an indweller in everyone and controls everyone. So this applies both to Chit and Achit, both to matter and spirit. Right? Krishna is indweller, like Andantarastha Paramanuchayantarastham. And also he is there as Paramatma in our heart. So this is one meaning. This is one meaning of the word Narayana. Another meaning which we know more common name is Naranam Ayanam Yahasaha. That means in whom all the beings rest or reside. Okay? This is the second meaning. That means basically outside also he is the one who controls and who sustains everyone. Okay? Very beautiful meaning. So that means which is something like what is called as Adara Adaya Sambandham. That means he is the person who sustains everything. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Gamavashyacha bhutani dharayami aham ojasa pushnami chaush. Means what is it? Yadaditya gatam tejo jagat bhashayati kalam. All those verses Krishna says. That means Krishna is the one who in whom everything rests. So that means he is the one who sustains everyone outside and also inside. So that is the meaning of the word Narayana. The Narayana word indicates that he is the one who is the indweller in all the living entities and all the entities, you can say, no, both the matter and spirit. And then the second is in whom all the beings reside. Right? Naranam Asya Yasaha. That's how the meaning is explained. So this is the meaning of the word Narayana. So that's why this, actually I have heard somewhere that even this name was given by some devotee or some sadhu. Right? I have heard this somewhere that Ajamila, when he was so busy, he was producing children, but when his youngest son was there was some sadhu who was passing by, he gave the name Narayana. Like that I have heard also somewhere. That means it was also by mercy of devotee only he got perfection. So, so if you see long back in BTG, there was a nice article written by our Ravi Gupta, Radhikaraman Prabhu. No? So he had mentioned very nicely how earlier times there always the names of children were given after the holy names of the Lord directly. Right? Krishna, Rama, Govinda, all this, no? Madhava, right? Keshava and all these things. So that what happens, directly we call the names, right? Always, no? Govinda, like Gopal, like that we can keep calling. And then gradually what happens, qualities were given to children. Generally, if you see, now also it is famous. Many people, they give some weird name. If you see, there will be some quality. That means like Vivek, Sundar, Sudhir, like there are many names, right, which are more of qualities. So the quality, so from the names it became qualities. And then further we see some meaningless names also. Pinky, Twinkle, all these things. Munnu, Chinnu, like all these things. In fact, in the West, there are names which are like material objects only. Stone, we hear names, stone, rock and all these things are there. That means the names are correct, no? We hear these names, right? That means. So that means the names, gradually giving names also degraded like this, right? From the holy names of the Lord, some qualities given to qualities, which is better than this one. And then still further some meaningless names also like that. Of course, see, sometimes many times certain names with the qualities also will represent the Lord or his devotees. That is also there. Right? So So there is a pastime in Prabhupada Leelamrita also. Prabhupada, when he had this stroke, right? I think in the first initial year or 1966 or somewhere, Prabhupada has a stroke and he is admitted to the hospital. So that time all his Prabhupada disciples become very close to Prabhupada. They all feel great closeness to Prabhupada. So they ask once what happens once he is little relieved, many disciples surround Prabhupada and ask a lot of questions. Many questions and Prabhupada answers. So one devotee asks a question, Prabhupada, how can God have any name? No? God is supreme, he is ultimate, right? How can he have a name? How can we say is? So Prabhupada says, no, why not? Why you will not have a name? See, everyone has a name, why God should not have a name? That will restrict him, right? And Prabhupada says, in fact, every name indicates Lord only. Every name indicates Krishna. And he surrounds and asks, there is one devotee, Purushottam. So what is your earlier name? Yes. So my name is Paul. What does it mean? He says, it means little. He says, that also represents Krishna. Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. So that represents Krishna. And then Satsarup Maharaji volunteers. He says, my name was, I think Steve or Stephen, he says. Steve. So that means crown, Prabhupada. I said, yes, Krishna is the king. Krishna is the king. So that is how it means. So like that, Prabhupada compares every name is actually representing Krishna. That is there. But the direct names, what we have of the Lord or his devotees, when we keep calling, we also get purified. Right? That's how it is. In fact, one of the Alvars, Periyalvar, the father of Andal, he has composed around 462 verses, songs about Lord and his pastimes. So he has dedicated some 10 verses, 10 songs, 10 pasurams. Only that the title of that section is called is Upadesham to the worldly people. How you should name your children in the name of the Lord. That is the whole context. I will not go into detail. Basically, where he says a lot of things. He scolds and he says that it seems that those times there are people who are giving names based on if someone gives a lot of money or wealth, and they will give their name only to that person, like that. Now also it is there. Sometimes big politicians or sports. I have heard there was one person who was telling that some two names he had twins, two names. When I asked what is this, he said no, there are some famous hockey players. So I said okay. People keep names of such people, right? Some big people. So he scolds, desiring money, nice dress and food grains. Why you give your name to such, name of such materialistic people? He gives very strong things. He says, someone who is just a bag of stool and urine and everything. Why you have given such a person's name to your child? Like that, he gives a lot of instruction. So he says, instead, keep the names of Lord Narayana. He gives, in each verse, he gives different names. Keshava, Narayana, Sridhara, Damodara, Govinda, Madhava. He said, like that you can keep and you can also enjoy. Yeah? Otherwise, other names, when you call, after some time, become very boring, he says, So instead, why you keep names like that? And he says, you are keeping unsafe names to such children. Without any brain, you are giving unsafe names. That's our translation in English. So instead, keep all these names. And he says, parents, and the verse it comes, parents who keep like that, they don't enter hell at all. Because he says, when Yamaraj comes to take them, they will think, oh, this person's son or daughter's name is the holy name of the Lord. So how can I take this person? So you will leave them. So like that he says. And he says, see, even if a person, one point he says is, even if you are, keep the names of Lord Narayana only, even if it means begging for a living. It seems some people used to give the name like Kuvera and all those things. Thinking that if I keep the name Kuvera, then the person will become very rich or he will be wealthy. So he says, no, even if he has to beg for a living, better to give him the holy name of the Lord. Like that, he gives a lot of instructions. So, like that, at the end, he says that, how by reciting these 10 verses, one will attain the spiritual world, like that. So that's an important thing he also mentions. So, this is briefly we saw about naming the children with this. So, lastly, I would like to briefly tell, there is a similar story, very nice pastime, in Purana called as Vishnu Dharmam. So, there is a beautiful, very nice story about one Kshatra Bandhu. Okay. So, this is quoted by one Alvar called as Tondaradi Pudi Alvar. He is called as Bhaktangri Renu. So, in one of the verses, he also preaches to the worldly people. So, in that, one of the verses he says, I will just read the first line, it is in Tamil. Moithaval vinayul nindru moonrelu tudaya peral, kattira bandhumandre parangati kandu kondan. This is only the first two lines. What he says here is, that means there was a person named Kshatra Bandhu. Okay. So we have the names, right? Brahma Bandhu, we say. Brahma Bandhu means is family of a Brahmana, but he is very degraded. That is why. So what Acharyas explained is why such names are there, because they do not want to pronounce his name only. See, suppose someone is a Brahmana, but he is very degraded, he is given Brahma Bandhu. Right? That means it's not worth calling. See, for example, there is a person named Nanuran in you know this story, right? Kuresh and Ramanujacharya's guru, Mahapurna, they were, they plugged their eyes and all those, right? So there was an assistant to the king who was earlier in the group of devotees, but later he moved here. So he is considered such a great offender. Can you imagine? Because of him, Kuresh's eyes were. So his name is called as Nanura. Nanura means based on his village, they gave this name because they don't know how to pronounce his name also. It is said when that name of that person is that devotees used to close their ears. You can't even spell such a sinful person, such an offender. Like that. So similarly, here his name is called a Kshatrabandhu. Bandhu. So this Kshatrabandhu, Bandhu, what he was now? He was son of Surya Vamsha king Vishwaratan. So there is a king named Vishwaratan. So he was the son of this Surya Vamsha king. But what happened from his childhood, he was very, very cruel. From his birth only he was like that. So I heard, it is said, when he was very hungry, he used to go to his mother and show his knife. You give me, otherwise I will kill you, like that. So such a cruel, from his childhood he was having such tendency. Okay. So what happened was, he was so much cruel and creating problem, he was sent out by the family, father, mother, everyone, and he was sent to the forest. So he went to the forest, and there also he was driven out of home, got into the forest, and there also he was doing all cruel activities and attacking people who were coming, plundering their wealth and all those things. That's how he was living his life. Okay. So that Alvar, what he says is, Moitha val vinayul nindru. That means all the sinful reactions, they were all just like, if you have a banana or something, or some sweet, you see a lot of insects and ants and all will be fully surrounding it, right? We say, honey combed with falls and all, we use this term, right? So like that, Mohita val vinayul means all the sinful activities were all competing. I want to, this reaction should come first, because he had so many sinful reactions in his backlog. That's how he was. So that is so sinful this person was. So Mohita val vinayul moonred. So such a person, we will see this. What is the past time? So what happens? Once one great sadhu, one great rishi was passing by the forest. And he was so tired by his, somehow he was so tired, he could not walk further, and he get deviated and comes to this, the route of this Krishna's arrangement, to this Kshatrabandhu's area. So Kshatrabandhu, he understands, hey, maybe this is not the way, the rishi should have gone other way. So somehow by Lord's mercy, what he does is, he feels pity on the rishi. He was so tired and so exhausted. He says, this is not the place, rishi, you have to go that side. Like that, he just gives a direction. And then, okay, he goes further, and what happens is, this rishi is so thirsty and he could not withstand it. He goes to a pond to drink water, but he falls into that. So hearing that, what is the Kshatrabandhu? What he does, he keeps his bow and arrow aside, goes and helps the sadhu, helps the rishi, and gives him water and everything. So after drinking water and all, he feels so happy. He sees, I am so thankful to you. Please tell me about you. Who are you? Where are you from? And all this. He thinks he is a great person. Then he says, I'm son of this King Vishwaratan, but this is my job, only to torture others and all those things. Hearing all this, the sage feels very sorry about it. So the sage says, please give up this violence. Ahimsa you have to give up this violence and torturing others. Like this he gives instruction. Kshatrabandhu says, no, whatever you say, it doesn't make any sense to me. This kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, all these things are inbuilt in me. I cannot take this away from my mind only. So if there is something simple, you tell me, otherwise it is not possible for me. So then what he says, this great rishi, what he says, okay, you just, when you are drinking water or when you are sneezing or whatever it is, you just tell this 3-letter word. He says, Govinda, the 3-letter word. So in that verse also, the Alvar says, Moondrezhu Tudaya Peral. So Acharyas, they explain, he is putting like that so that everyone will be eager. What is that 3-letter word? What is that 3-letter word? So that he can preach to them like that. So he says, you just chant the name of Govinda. Okay, whenever possible, you chant the name of Govinda. So this he accepts, and what it is said from that time onwards, whatever he was doing here and there, he was keep on chanting the name of Govinda, 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 like that. So it is said, after his death, in the next life, he was born in a family of a Brahmana, but by Lord's mercy, he was given the remembrance of the previous life also. So he understood, what abominable life I was leading, and I was saved by the holy name of the Lord. It is said, in that life, he became so much devoted to the holy names of the Lord and worshipping the Lord. He became a very great devotee, and then after that, he attained the spiritual world. So this Purana is quoted by this Alvar, says, Parangati Kandagundan. Just in 2 lines, he explains this whole pastime. And then in the next line, he says, our Lord is such a simple Lord. That means he can come down so much to the level of a devotee. It means he says, Pittan means he's mad. He's mad after his devotee. So if someone chants his name, he's mad after him and wants to give something. Correct, no? Means someone mad means what? He will give something disproportional, right? Someone does something small, you give some big thing, or like that.
So he says, such a Lord is there, but still our worldly people, how come they are not Vittanai Petrumando Piravul Pinangumare? What he says is, such a Lord, one is God, but still why one is undergoing the suffering in the cycle of birth and death? No, such a simple thing. Like that, the Alvar prays to the Lord. So, this is what briefly we saw today. So, I will end here. So, what we saw today is, we talked about this sense controlled and higher taste in the Bhagavad Gita based on this Vishaya Vinivartante and then this Tani Sarvani Samyamya, that verse, how important it is. That means even to control the senses without the mercy of the Lord, it is not possible at all. So, that is one thing we discussed. And second, we also discussed that mutual dependency, how that, with for sense control you need Atma Sakshatkar, and for Atma Sakshatkar you need sense control. So that mutual dependency, Krishna breaks with that, Tani Sarvani Samyam. We discussed that. And next we discussed about the importance of, we discussed little bit on the meaning of Narayana, because that comes now. And then the importance of giving, before that we talked about the old age, right? How old age, how it can be most miserable or valuable to ourselves or others. We saw examples of Dhritarashtra, we saw how Uddhava, how he was the positive example we saw. And we also saw from the life of Srila Prabhupada and many others. And then we talked about the meaning of Lord Narayana, and then importance of naming children on Lord's names, right? Even Ajamila's son was also named by a sadhu, a devotee like that. And then we saw this, how the degradation happens in naming children also generally. And then we saw how this Periyar he has also given this 10 pasurams instructing the worldly people how important it is to give the names of children as the holy names of the Lord. And then at the end we saw this similar story in this Vishnu Dharmam quoted by this Tondaradi Pudiyalvar, how this great sinner, this Kshatra Bandhu, he became went back home, back to God just by chanting the 3-letter name, Govinda. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. Thank you. Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your class, especially the past time, the last past time. My question is this, that there is astrological background of culture where the naming is given based on the time and all these things. So how much devotees should think about that and this Vaishnava way, and how do we deal? Because that is also given much importance. I have met some people who are saying like that. So can you throw some light in that direction?
I don't know really so much, but it's not this or that. Both can be there also. So we can have some name, which we have unlimited names of Lord and His devotees. Both can be there also. But I think we can consider that also. That is also important. I have heard that is also important. So, but what I am telling is we can have both these aspects, right? Both this. Yeah, that has some significance also. So we can use that also and also have Lord's holy names. No problem. So that we are also happy here. But generally, earlier times, if you see, all families, everyone, it was like that only. So many names of Lord only. So just by calling only, you get perfection. Yeah. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.